How does being a grandparent impact how successful or how healthy a retirement you're going to have? We're going to talk about that and more on the next episode of Retirees Radio.
Welcome to Retirees Radio, your one-stop shop for retirement planning. Tune in and get ready to take control of your retirement future.
Well, hello and welcome into Retirees Radio, where we help you lead a great life in retirement by going beyond the finances with Victor Medina, who is a certified financial planner, certified elder law attorney, and retirement income certified professional. Victor, you don't think of this topic, super granny, as one that would apply towards retirement and retirement planning, but it does fit, right?
It does fit. You know, one of the measures of a successful retirement that we've designed in sort of that retirement wheel of life is really about your relationships with family. And there is that switchover where people who are grandparents, while they're still working, play one kind of role as grandparents. But in retirement, often that role switches. And so there's a lot involved in how to make sure that you have a successful relationship with this new label that's on there. There are elements of that you've got to consider because it's not all sort of happy things that are going on. There are trade-offs. You've got to protect yourself. You've got to make sure that you're allowing space for your children to continue to be parents on their own. So there's a lot rolled into that. But people do take on a different kind of role, sort of as a super granny or a super grandparent when they get into that retirement phase.
Well, as we jump into this conversation today, please subscribe to the YouTube channel as you're watching. We appreciate your support there. Jot down the number 856-506-8300 if you want to call and follow up on anything we talk about today, and also retirees.com. Sign up, drop your email in, you'll get access to all the latest tools and guides that they put together. Now, I think when we have this conversation, Vic, the first thing that kind of comes to mind is, and as a new parent, maybe this is because I'm kind of right in the thick of this, is, well, this is a benefit for the actual parents, right? It gives them a little time away, maybe recharge their batteries, gives them a break. But there's a lot of benefits as well for not only the children, but also the grandparents on top of that.
I think that's absolutely the case. And, you know, I've got a couple of different sources that I can draw on from that. One is the one that we've been able to live, having great grandparents, our parents, great grandparents in our children's lives. And we've been raising 3 kids. And, you know, we now have that spectrum of having raised them where my parents or our parents were grandparents to young-aged children. And now my oldest is in college and my second oldest is about to go to college. And so we've been able to kind of watch that entire spectrum. And by the same token, we've been able to observe it inside of our clients. So, for example, one of the things that we do from time to time as a client event is we might rent out a theater, and it's typically for a kids' movie. And I'll tell you, it's attended almost exclusively by the grandparents who are our clients bringing their grandkids to go and attend that movie. So whether it's Toy Story 4 or the Kung Fu Panda 92, whatever it's got in there, they come in and they're hero grandparents. And I think that what I've been able to observe, both in my parents as well as in these other clients of mine through there, is that there's a tremendous benefit to their mental health to remain engaged with younger people. You know, there's too much that happens sometimes in retirement where people are put off to pasture, but the young kids, when they're running around, keeps those grandparents spry because they got to be chasing after them or else they're going to walk off the stairs and all the way down and they're going to have to answer to the parents about why they got a big lump on their head. The same thing's the case. It's just about the engagement. Those younger kids are still living life. So the conversations that my parents are having with my oldest about what he's doing in college and the jobs that he's trying to pursue or the internships or just the habits that he's into, the fun things that he's into, keep them involved in life at a younger level and doesn't section them off to only be considering items that are for old people. And so the more that they remain engaged with it, the more that they remain involved, the better they make out because they're not aging themselves too quickly. They're not getting to the point of being treated like old people. They're actually living a very healthy, spry, involved, active life, being surrounded by young, active people who are their grandchildren.
Yeah, and we'll get into some of those benefits as well for grandparents, but I really want to kind of begin a little bit more on the kind of how it helps the family and the mom in the situation a lot of times. Because there was a study from Finland, and we're going to drop some resources in the show notes as well, so you can learn a little bit more about this. And of course, they're called the happiest country in the world, right? So they got to be doing something right as it relates to lifestyle. But they said that this support from grandparents just can have such a positive impact on a mother's mental health. And we know there are a lot of mental health struggles right now, and there's different ways you can do it, right? It's not just providing financial support. It's also childcare assistance, picking up some of the parental duties. There's a wide range of ways you can provide.
Ben, I wish it was the case that, across this country, in Finland and everywhere else, that parents shared that child raising duty equally. Right? That would be the ideal, it'd be optimal. We would want that across the board. But I think the truth is that mothers bear a bigger burden on raising children. They're often the ones. I ended up writing a book about empowering women in retirement. And one of the research items that we came up with is that women tend to be overall at a lower earning capacity, have smaller savings rates, in part because they are the default parent that needs to take time off, check their career if necessary when they're raising children. So there's an incredible burden that we place on them. And most new mothers don't come with the manual all ready to go, and they're in that process of learning. So if we then extrapolate that out and say, look, we've got this pressure that we're building around what new parents are dealing with, and then we have the ability for grandparents who, A, have been through it before, and B, have the space, especially if they're in retirement, to lend support, because that mom might be back at work or juggling multiple children, but they can lend a helping hand. Then we know that, or we're confident that burdened mother is going to be better supported and healthier and happier throughout. And so we just look at the spectrum of resources that a grandparent can provide. Beyond the finances is really the ability to have some relief from time to time, the ability to get some additional education or insight about how to handle different problems. And they come with that wisdom, and they can lend that wisdom so that the mother's feeling better, the kids have a better experience, and then a little bit what we talked about earlier, that the grandparents themselves are getting something out of that.
Yeah, and the children pick up on everything too, right? They can tell when the mother's struggling, having trouble taking care of them, work, whatever it is. So by providing this support, it also is passed along to the children, right? They pick that up and they have a better mental health developmental process, these sort of things.
Yeah, when my wife and I started having kids, one of the things that we were deciding about where to live. And we were living in Massachusetts at the time, and my wife's family was in New Jersey, where I am now, but it was about 5 hours worth of a drive. And my family was in Connecticut, about 2.5 hours, kind of in between the two. And one of the things that I observed is that my wife's family was very matriarchal. They were run by a grandmother who had brought over all her siblings to New York City and then raised 4 children and was the sort of primary caregiver as all of those people were working. But they had this big community, and that community worked together to raise all of those children. My wife and all of her cousins were all raised in this big environment. And what I learned, and so this is how we decided where to live, is that there was a tremendous benefit to having that community resource available as we were raising our own children. Not just for the time, Ben, where we could drop off a kid for a babysitter, but really, as you were talking about that self-governance, that learning that happens when there is observation about just the way that it is. This is the way that we operate. We operate in a way that we're supporting one another. We operate in a way in which we're willing to share the load. We operate in a way in which we're open to new information that we're getting from other places so we can learn how we're doing. Like that entire environment, that education, sort of that tribal thing where we're all learning at once is information, or it's a learning that I wanted my children to have, and that sort of guided our decision. So to your point, the observation powers are quite strong. And the more that you show by your actions, not just your words, the more that you show by your actions what great behavior looks like, what a great family dynamic is going to be, and it's consistent, and it's just how you live, the better off all of the parties involved are going to be. But it does start with sort of that top down that says, this is the way that we've operated, let me teach you that so that you adopt it on your own. And you're saying like they start to learn and do that behavior themselves.
Yeah, so many benefits top to bottom. Let's spend a little bit of time then on the grandparents, because we focus on retirement and helping someone live the best retirement possible, not just worrying about the financial aspect. A lot of it is the mental and physical health, which this plays a big part in both of those, correct?
Yeah, physical and mental. I think you hit on both of those because when I was joking around chasing the toddler, you've got to be in pretty good physical health to do that. They're quick and they are, sometimes wriggly when you try to pick them up. So I've made reference to a doctor, a longevity doctor named Peter Tia, and one of the things that he champions out there is training for the centenarian's decathlon, those things that you want to do at age 100. And we're not talking about running a marathon or some heroic physical activities, but walking 3 flights of stairs without having to stop or being able to get up from a sitting position. You need really good health to be able to do that, and being involved with grandkids, being an involved grandparent is going to require you to raise your level of physicality. You can't do that from an infirmed state. You can't do that when all you are capable of doing is staying in the Barca Lounge recliner and having everything brought to you. So it helps. It helps the entire picture of retirement when you are active, engaged, at a high physical level. And it's one of these things that we talk about, Ben, from the beginning. It's like if you have a vision for what your retirement's going to look like in the future, train for that today. I mean, there are things that people can be doing at age 50, 55 for playing a role as an active grandparent at age 75. You'll know that part of the things you got to do might be to be outside playing ball with one of your grandkids, and know that you can navigate uneven landscape, that you can still throw a ball if you wanted to, and it's not going to break a hip because you fall. Those types of things you can train for ahead of time. Now, there are also other elements with respect to your mental health as well, because you are actively involved in the things of the moment of the day. We joke a little bit about AI, but I had a great conversation with my mother when she was coming to visit, or observed a great conversation between my mother and my college-age son, because he is taking a marketing class where the professor has now allowed ChatGPT, using artificial intelligence, to take exams, because he said, in fact, that I can't create an exam, the professor can't create an exam that can't be passed on it. So that's not what I'm going to test, so feel free to do that. In order for my mom to keep up in that conversation, she needed to, it helped her mental health. She was able to engage at a level of the things of the moment, right? And it's not like she checked out, like, I'm an old person, I can't do that any longer. I always think about the use of technology, like how to use an iPad. And there is a spectrum. There's a spectrum of my clients that are absolutely adroit at using them. They can go in and swipe, and they've got all their bank accounts. And then I got the person with the flip phone. The person with the flip phone's a little bit behind in terms of their total mental health, if I'm being fair, than the person that is still engaging with technology and still learning. So I think that, playing that role of an active grandparent where you are involved, you're involved in what the challenges of those grandkids are of the day, and you're involved in what they're living through, and can have the benefit, that dual benefit of getting you better physical and mental health. And it's one of the reasons to really invest in and really participate in those kinds of family relationships, just making sure that they are healthy and available to you. If you're the grandparent in that role, be in a position where you can really take advantage of having a great relationship with all your children, their children, and if you're so blessed to keep living, their children down the road, and you become a great grandparent.
At Retirees, we believe that retirement is much more than taking care of your finances. The key to true retirement success is addressing things like health and fitness, relationships, community involvement, personal development, and more. Retirees wants to provide you with real steps to reach financial success, so join our mailing list to be the first to receive the tools, insights, and planning guides you need to enjoy a fulfilling retirement.
Being isolated is a big issue in retirement too, and this kind of solves for that a little bit. right? Where you don't feel like you're on your own, and you know, it all plays into the physical and mental aspect, but just that isolating feeling can be overwhelming.
I love that, Ben. That is a great point, and I agree with it 100%. You know, social isolation has got really negative tentacles that grow out of that. Not only does it affect your physical health because you are less involved, you're staying in home, but it also helps the mental deterioration. It just advances that. So really being involved with other people and having a reason to be engaging socially with them, it's fantastic. It's fantastic that we combat that social isolationism with these types of relationships. And the nice thing is, they say you can pick your friends, but you can't pick your family kind of thing. You always have that to go to. You may not maintain interest in pickleball or whatever else, but as you go in, what your grandkids are doing will always have an outlet for you to participate in. It will always draw you in. There's always another concert for you to go to, a soccer game in the weekend to try out, something to go get involved in, and a reason to engage with what they're doing. They never fail for activities. I can speak to this with complete confidence and experience that there's always something going on, and you're going to have an opportunity to engage with that, and that will really draw you out of kind of staying alone and staying in your apartment or your house by yourself.
Yeah, I think any parent hearing you say that's just shaking their head. Yep,
It's
absolutely.
a paid Uber, an unpaid Uber job, you know, Monday through Friday and also on the weekends.
Well, I know the big focus in this conversation today is on the health side of it, but are there any financial benefits to this conversation?
Yeah, I think that there are, and one of them I'm going to start with is going to be sort of atypical or against conventional wisdom, which is, you know, a lot of people talk about giving with a warm hand during their lifetime. So folks will think about this idea that they are going to leave behind an inheritance, and whatever they have left is what someone's going to receive. That's leaving with a cold hand, right? And so when you have, let's say, a great plan, we'll design a plan, let's say, for people in retirement where we know that we're going to need access to money for a certain period of time, and then it's likely, based on the way that we've designed it, that they don't have to touch their savings after a certain period of time because we've locked in different sources of guaranteed income. Okay. The idea there is that the clients now know the money that's available for them to support, gift other people in a way that can benefit them while the grandparent's still alive and while that person still needs it. I mean, helping with college, once the kid's already graduated with college, not a lot of help. So waiting for the person to die for that doesn't make it on plan. But if we're thinking about the benefit in terms of financial to them, you can get the reward of supporting somebody when they need it, because you've got a great plan that knows that you have that available to give. And you have that in a way that doesn't compromise what you might need down the road. Okay. The other reason for this one's also a little bit counterintuitive, but it's actually a personal reward for the older person, not what they're leaving behind, is one of the things that is said about retirement is that every day becomes Saturday. Now, that's a nice thing because nobody works on Saturday, so it's good. I don't have to go to work. But it's an expensive thing because we do all our expensive things on Saturdays. That's when we go out. So if you're more involved with your family, if you have activities that don't cost as much, when you go to, these concerts are like $3 of a donation for a lollipop on the way in, you are not going to significantly impact the budget. But if you're involved with your family, your grandkids on a regular basis, you might actually find yourself you're spending less because you're more involved in things that are free. And having that time that you're spending with them is often free time. You might sponsor a McDonald's trip, a Wendy's or Chick-fil-A run for the grandkids. You're the one that's going to buy them the ice cream that their parents won't buy them, or the soda that they're not allowed to drink. That's the grandparents' right to do it. But for the most part, you won't be spending like you spend on Saturdays. So there can be a financial reward that you're actually with a smaller budget because you're occupying time that doesn't cost as much as it might if you had to fill it on your own with people that weren't family.
I love that. And I love this conversation, Victor. I think a lot of times we downplay the importance of the elder folks in our lives, right? Of our grandparents, family members. We oftentimes just kind of take them for granted, but not only do they play a huge role in our lives and our children's lives, but, vice versa, right? We could still have a huge impact on theirs. You're
totally right, Ben. And I think it was one of the things is I'm not sure that our audience is comprised of that parent when we're talking to the grandparent. But your point is really towards the parent, because the parent often defines the bounds of that relationship. And I would be sad, and I get sad when I hear about it, when there aren't parents that are making space for the grandparent who wants to engage to come and do that, right? And so it really requires all of the parties in there to participate in that, because if one of the measures of retirement is that when you look backwards over the time spent, that you don't regret it, that you don't wish that it was spent differently. The areas where it might feel that way are not in the spending of your money. You're not going to look back and be like, I really shouldn't have, sort of taken that trip or whatever else, or I shouldn't have said that. You're going to look back and say, I wish I had a better relationship with my kids. I wish I had a better relationship with my grandkids. I wish I knew my grandkids better. And so when we think about the definition of success in retirement, it's often measured in the interpersonal, in those things that we can reflect with gratitude, because they are other-centered. They're focused on people outside ourselves, not what we do for us, but what we were able to engage with people around us. And so when we think about that role of grandparent, when we think about the ability for you to have involvement in your children and their children's lives, and that you are somewhat defined in your success by the impact or influence that you're able to have, that's going to be an incredibly rewarding thing. And we know these people, Ben. We know these people that have that great relationship with a grandparent, and they talk about them with love and with reverence about what they learned by spending time with them and being at their right hand, and I was taught how to sew by this person, and I never forget about that memory. So you leave a lasting legacy for the people that you leave behind, which ought to be a really rewarding place to live while you're still here.
I love it. Well said, Victor, and we appreciate your insight into this topic. And if you have questions, I encourage you to always reach out, 856-506-8300. But also log on, retirees.com, drop your email in, sign up. You'll get to be the first to get access to planners, other tools that are being provided and created right now by the team at Retirees. And again, this conversation is all about helping you lead a great life in retirement beyond just the finances, and we hope we helped you do that today. Victor, thanks for the time. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Ben. Talk to you soon.
Palante Wealth Advisors are an independent financial services firm that utilizes a variety of investment and insurance products. Medina Law Group is an independent estate planning and elder law firm. Investment advisory services offered through Palante Wealth Advisors, LLC in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, registered investment advisor. Registration does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet a particular need of an individual situation. Medina Law Group and Palante Wealth Advisors are not permitted to offer, and no statement made during the show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Medina Law Group and Palante Wealth Advisors.